Hi, good evening, Raghu. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Mayank.
Well, I have to first tell you something hand to heart, Raghu. 10 years back, when I was still in the academic phase of my life, if someone would have told me that, hey, 10 years later, you'd be doing a podcast of your own, I would have laughed it off. Because you see, I've been more of a podcast listener than a host. But here we are 10 years later, where I've got this incredible opportunity to speak with a wonderful leader like yourself, which I'm immensely grateful for. So I first want to start by thanking you, Raghu, for agreeing to do this. This is both new to me, and to you as well. So I hope it'll start in a good way.
Yeah, thanks so much for choosing me. And I was a little surprised when you sent me that email saying I'm your first host for your podcast. So I'm very honored that I'm part of your first podcast series. So good wishes. I hope you'll get more and more amazing speakers, and your fan following will grow. And I've been reading your posts for quite some time now, and I think I'm very impressed with what you put there.
Thank you. Very kind of you, Raghu, to say that. The larger intent of why I wanted to do a podcast of my own and this series eventually is that I want to be a bridge. Now, on one side of the bridge are individuals who are facing some situation in their life. They could probably be stuck somewhere. They are overanalyzing, overthinking about taking that first step. They're still in their comfort zone, scared of a challenge, but they can all change that with some input, some guidance from someone. On the other hand of that bridge are individuals who've actually gone through that journey themselves, and they now live to tell us tales about how they did it. So I just want to be a bridge, connect both, because at the end we progress together. I also feel that there are two reasons why people will love these podcasts. Number one, authenticity. These are real conversations with real people, real stories. None of it is fiction. And when people actually hear from someone who's gone through that, they resonate more. Second, relatability. Someone, Raghu, listening today to you right now must be in a spot which probably you were in 10, 15 years ago. So if they can take a leaf from your book, maybe they can just take that extra step in life. So that's the aim. That's the reason why I'm doing this. With that being said, Raghu, why don't you introduce yourself? And I'm not sure if I've probably asked you this ever, but also tell me something which is not probably in your resume.
Okay, so my name is Raghuram Krishnan, fondly known as Raghu, currently serving as the Chief Financial Officer for Adobe India. I've been with them for about 12 years now. Across industries, I've had the opportunity to work with different companies, either it's trading, manufacturing, hardware, software, services, so on and so forth. Why this variety is because I've chosen who I want to work with throughout my career. And I didn't pick up a job just because it came to me, because I had this thing with me that I want to learn more. And every time I wanted to change a job, I would say, this is the industry I want to next go. And I would identify 4 or 5 companies and I would say, okay, let me focus on getting a job in these. Not necessarily because they were top on brand, is because I felt they were accessible. There was something for me to learn, and I had some kind of leverage to believe that there's an opportunity. The second principle I've always had is I will not work for the same person twice. So if I work for somebody, I don't work for them again. That's another principle I've always carried. It's primarily to do with my own personality. If I know someone very well, I tend to not be as hardworking as I should be. You manage things at back of the envelope, and you know how to handle the person. I
Right,
tend to become a little complacent.
right.
In That's my nature. So luckily, I figured out what my nature is. I didn't change my nature, but I changed my style. uh, yeah, and that's given me a lot of scope. Today I think where I stand is the combination of all of those experiences that's helped me be very different and stand out. Outside of this, I have been always known as a problem solver. I am not this hardcore finance guy you would find who is a gatekeeper. While my job kind of entailed, always said there is a way we can do things differently. I
Right.
don't have to be this person who every time says no, and I hate binary answers, the yes and no's. I say, why not kind of situation. So that's been there. And I've also been very consistent in how I approach things. It's not that it's convenient today and I do something and I change my stance. And I'm the first one to find fault in people in terms of work. Be the first one to complain, but I'll be the first one to again come back and appreciate when it happens. So they, over time, they've understood that it's fine if I say something or if I catch something that's not going well, but he's the guy who will come and appreciate. So I think these are qualities I've been able to bring in. Outside of this, I've kept adding something or the other through my career. While we call it work-life balance, most for me, more than that, it was something I identify as personal time for myself, where I interact with myself and I'm doing an activity of passion. It become passion, but it was something that I started exploring. So this has allowed me to be uh, getting time for myself while I'm doing a lot of things at work.
Right.
uh, it's also become an inspiration for many. I usually hate that word inspiration because I hear a lot of people say that, but don't do anything about it. Not that you need to follow what I do, but if it's not helping you do something, then I'm not inspiration enough. It sounds good when you say it. So I usually tell people, if I'm inspiring, please go and try something that you are unable to do today. Uh, so yeah, I'm been, and at the same time I'm pretty vocal about how I feel and do things, unfiltered, but at the same time I'm sensitive to what I say. I'm not brash or unmanageable when it comes to conversations. The other thing I follow as a principle is keep smiling. You will always catch me smiling at work. uh, I've probably never lost my cool, even though situations demand me to get there. But I'm assertive, but I'm not aggressive. Never use language that's inappropriate. So I think, yeah, I've kept some principles going along with me, and this is who I am.
Wow, wonderful. Just thinking a couple of things, and let me come to that right away. 98, if I'm not wrong, you started working. 1998,
Into
right?
the industry. Into the industry, yeah.
Into the industry. Okay. Um, 27, 28 years back, I'm just thinking, Raghu, if someone would have told you, hey, this is where you would be in 25, 26 years, like right where you are right now, would you believe it? What would you probably say to your younger self?
Starting from me, and everybody around me would have laughed their life out. I I didn't show any signs of getting anywhere close to where I am today. So yeah, I was a hard worker, but I don't think I got identified as smart. I think I reinvented myself to where I've come today.
Right.
This journey would have been possibly something I was able to see, or at least have some amount of clarity, only in the last 8 to 9 years.
8 to 9 is understood. And
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that someone who is, and this could be a myth that I have, and I'm happy you want to break that myth. Someone who's good with numbers usually makes a good career out of finance, which is also one of the reasons why I haven't picked this profession up. But when you look at this profession, like from then to now, Raghu, what do you think has changed? Like something which was probably very evident when you started in the industry like 20, 25 years ago. And now when you look at it, any particular thing from your vantage point that has changed for the good or for the worse? It could be in terms of skills, in terms of opportunities.
Yes, just before I answer that question, I'll just tell you, finance was not my choice of subject. It
Okay,
just
okay,
was unavailable for me to do because the family said nothing. I was not good for science. I wanted to do arts, in the sense, mostly around content writing, and I wanted to work in an ad company, making ads. Creative space to some extent to where the company is today, but I wanted to be there. Obviously, coming from a South Indian middle class family, that was a no no. And the other thing I had always interest in was to be an athlete. Not that I was anywhere close to be able to, something kind of made me feel athletes are really good, the track and field folks. Or I wanted to be in the army. I asked my family and I got beaten up for that. Again, we didn't have anybody in the family from that. So finally I came down and I said, for your marks you'll get finance or arts. Then I took finance, and That's how I came in, and I started liking it over time. It was I didn't have anything connected to it otherwise. I mean, everybody in the family was an accountant or something of that sort, but I had no connection to any of that. So, for your question, see, it's a lot has changed. I mean, I can't even imagine where I started to where I ended. I mean, from a role perspective, I was a travel accountant for in a company. In fact, when I came and they offered me the job, my salary was lower than the office boy in my previous
Wow.
company, and they were they were a little surprised. How do we make an offer to this guy because it's lower than the office boy, and they had to get that minimum, which meant a 400 500% hike to get me to the base salary like of what that company had. And because I came through a referral, they said, okay, we will give him, and they kind of elevated me, which you can imagine at 30 years back is crazy, right? When you wonder
Right.
why somebody wants to give you so much money, and the
Absolutely.
previous company was cribbing about what they were giving me. Nothing wrong, it's just the industry. I just moved into an IT industry, and the baseline was very different. I came in there purely to do travel accounting because it was a company where all engineers traveled around the world and lived there for 8 months, 10 months. You pay per diem. My job was to reconcile their travel accounts, open bank accounts for them, send money, reconcile when they come back for those few days they come to India and go back. This is all I was doing. So I literally knew everyone because everybody's account was with me, right? They would come to me and settle their accounts and everything. So I built a lot of relationship, but I also was very, like I said earlier on, I was a problem solver. So everything, something else happening in the team, I would step in and I would say, can I help you do this? And I slowly started picking up a lot of things. There was a time from there, while I had a manager, the company was going to be shut down, and I was calculating my own severance pay for the layoff. And the MD came in. He asked my boss to explain the balance sheet because I was preparing it by then, and he couldn't explain it in the way the MD liked. The following day, my manager hadn't come. He looked at me. He said, "Do you know how to explain the balance sheet?" I said, "I can try." I walked in. I walked him through the data. He was so impressed. He said, "You joined my team. Three of us actually worked together for 3 months to save the company from being shut down."
Wow.
So we finally found a buyer, and I was actually presenting with no experience to one of the investors in the US. Very big name actually. I will not use his name in this, but he's got a chair in big IITs and ISBs in India. That's how big he is. I was presenting something like he actually bought over the company. We saved 120 jobs. For me, that was the start of starting to feel what impact means. How you can change things from laying off 110 or 120 people to saving jobs, and that company grew to 3,000, 3,500 people, and I grew along with it. So from there, that journey I've experienced a lot. Then you come into a much more modern age. It changed into business partnering roles, right? It was a pure accountant to a little bit of a lot of things I did. Uh, it is it is moved to a stage where it is very important for us to change the way finance folks were understood. We were seen to
Right.
be very sober, boring set of people. It's not that we were that way, but I think the role demanded us to be in a certain way, and people mistook us to be those kind. But I tried to break that silo, and I was the one who was always trying to help and solve, and I that helped me scale. I was doing a lot of things. In fact, I didn't have clarity. I was running about 6 or 7 functions by then. It just get added to me, right?
And
They
this
know
was
you're a
when,
problem
Raghu?
solver.
Like when you were
This
running
is
six,
all
seven
around.
functions?
So it's 2004, I would say 3, 4. When this we saved this company, it moved in. We became 3,000 from zero. I was the first employee. So as part of this whole acquisition, I was the representative for both the companies, the buyer and the seller. Because the buyer
Okay.
didn't have an entity here. He said, "We want you to be owning it." They
Right.
made me a power of attorney. The selling company said, "Oh, we don't have anybody to trust, so you become." So I literally had two power of attorneys sitting in lawyer's office. I did a lot of things. I learned so much in that 3 to 4 months. My basic knowledge just shot up, and that's where I would say. if you get opportunities, just do it. I had no knowledge, I had no background, but I think what it did to me, it would have taken me 15, 20 years if I had to go looking for it. I don't even know 15, 20 years enough. I'm just saying if it happened. So I think sometimes those opportunities are very critical, and how you behave when those opportunities come to you. And there was also a phase during 2004, 2005. I was tired of working the way I was working, right? You're just catching up with work every day. I was not enjoying it. And somebody I met said, it's time you introspect, start figuring out what gives you more fun and what just looks like a job to complete. And that's when I made a big switch in my career. I took a break for 2 3 months. I thought through it, and I said, I enjoy being in strategy, sales, operations kind of work, FP&A kind of work. And I said, accounting, I don't want to do, because you get consumed in audit, and I wasn't getting time to enjoy what I do. And I like working with management team, and I consciously switched into that role, and I've been pursuing more of that in my career since, than the regular accounting and tax and stuff. I kind of stayed away from that in the last, but so it's actually made a huge difference to me. While I play a larger role today, but what shaped me is what I chose, because I figured out what gives me fun.
Wow. Raghu, so much to like about what you just said, and I'm just thinking a couple of things. One, when you enter a profession, any profession for that matter, there are some skills that you get to the table, and then there are some skills that you inherit. In your case, would you say that a lot part of your learning was on the job? Because probably taking courses, taking certifications, maybe back then, and now if you compare with so much digitization happening, you now have options, have a lot of resorts to go to. But would you say a lot back then was on the job and just taking whatever opportunities you could?
Yeah, so see, education is very critical because your fundamentals have to be strong, right? You can't learn fundamentals on the job. It's going to be tough. You can improve on that because the field operates very differently than what you theoretically study. But that is the core, and then you start building up upon these. And as you build, then it depends on you as to how smart you kind of interpret what that means. And many times I am somebody who learns on the practical side much faster and better than on
Right.
the theoretical. I'm not somebody who can mug things. I have to understand with
Logic.
examples. I have to kind of be able to, yeah, I have to visualize what this means. And once I get it, you will find me actually coming up with solutions saying, hey, we could actually solve it differently. Or I've literally, I can't say innovation, but I've come up with so many options to do things in a faster and simpler way, because I get that once. But I'm a slow learner when it comes to anything that I start with. But once I get hold of it, I will, probably outpace everybody else who started earlier than me. So I think you have to figure out where your strengths help you scale. I mean, we can all approach it in a certain way, and I think that introspection helps, and a certain discipline of identifying what works well for me, what gives me that kick, and what makes me feel happy doing it. I think that it's a process, but once you get a sense of it, I think lean towards it, because that will get you pace. That will give you the speed and fun when you're doing stuff.
Got it. Have you ever taken a financial decision um, on your pure gut and not logic? For example, let me maybe share my story once. There was this friend of mine a couple of years back, and he had this wonderful idea of a startup, and I was pretty sold on the vision and the concept with which he wanted to build and take this. But maybe the preliminary numbers weren't really adding up, and I wasn't unsure about taking it. That startup right now has scaled a lot. And when I look back at that, I just feel that, hey, I probably could have taken that decision on gut just at that situation. But how has this been for you, Raghu? Any particular example you can think of?
Yeah, many, I would say, that I think all of us do it. Again, uh, I didn't take it forward. There were a lot of ideas when I was part of Rotaract Club, the youth wing, and then I was a president and director for the district and everything. while I was doing all of that, I had a lot of ideas. In fact, people started coming to me and saying, "Oh, can you come to our club and talk about this idea?" And many ideas could actually turn into business, which we also tried. But you get cold feet because I come from a background where your monthly salary was more important than the risk
Right.
that you take. Every time I laid my hands on something, I would back off because I would say, no, I have commitment, because you're coming from a much smaller setup. Family needed money. So that became more critical. And I stepped back from almost everything that turned out to be a very good idea eventually. And I didn't take that step. Yeah, I regret. I won't say regret. I feel that I should have taken a chance at a younger age, much more. Today it's different, right? I mean, you have financial backing. It's not gut necessarily with just the confidence and the experience, but I think I
Right.
had a lot of great ideas. A lot of them turned out to be good. Whoever continued with that, yeah, I should have at least picked one or two of them and tried. And of
Right.
course, stock market, right? You go play around those days, hardly any internet for us to learn. You
Yeah.
just get going by what you read in the newspaper or somebody telling you. Did a few, messed up with a lot.
Right. Uh, in April of 2024, I took to a platform of 950 million users, which is LinkedIn, to share my story, right? And then I started with a series of stories, and I was very clear, Raghu, at that point that um, I would be only telling the world about my lowlights or my failures and the life lessons I've learned out of it. Now, in the last 10 months, because now I have enough sample to tell you about this, so many people reached out to me and told me that, hey, what you were going through is something that we were also going through. And a couple of people who probably also took that extra step and improved in some aspects. I love if you could tell me your hardest, let's say, moment. It could be in a personal space, personal capacity, professional. And particularly what I'm interested in knowing is your mindset, Raghu, before that challenge. What were you thinking? And then the aftermaths, like how did you ultimately like conquer, not conquer, and go about it?
Yeah, I would say quite a few in my life. So I can't specific because it's confidential. But over my 27, 28 years, I could say for 13, 14 years of my career, I went through some kind of workplace harassment. A lot of things were done to demote me from my positions I was in. I was thrown out of meeting because they wanted to get rid of me. And I'll tell you why those things were happening. Or they held back my increments for 5 years. A lot happened, and I was living through many emotional. It was affecting my family. Today, you have the word depression, but also what happened is many of them thought I was not good enough. People around me, friends, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, you are not that smart." That's why I said, I wouldn't have believed where I am today. But the couple of things I stayed true to myself, no matter what happened. I had a lot of financial difficulties. A lot happened, uh, but I was a fun guy always, so I stayed who I was. But I never compromised on my values. There were certain values I grew up with throughout my life. I said, not at the cost of my career. I will not compromise that value for just getting benefits to take care of my current family need or whatever it needs. I think I stuck to those. And slowly, with a lot that you face, one, I did not give up. I did not give up because somebody pushed me. I slowly got into this kind of a rebel mode. I said, challenge me now. I started questioning them. If here is what you want to get rid of me, show me why. Let's go through this process. And I was, see, you had hit rock bottom. I said, what's the worst? I'll be thrown out of the office. I was almost there, right? I was very close to that door to be thrown out. There is no comeback kind of thing. I knew I can't get worse than this. I anyway
Right.
going to be removed. I kind of confronted, and I started challenging them on the truth and facts, right? These are mostly emotional pressure that I was getting into. Slowly, when I started doing that, I started realizing a different power in me started coming up. Not of arrogance, but that you can stand up and fight for your own self. Otherwise, I was complaining, right? I was constantly saying, oh, they don't treat me well, or you get this sympathy thing for yourself. you victimize yourself. And I shifted away from being considering myself as a victim to saying it is your journey, you have to fight. Because I was always assuming that somebody will get me a job and you will lean to that person. And I realized that is not going to be forever. How long will you keep fighting? Because 14 years for me was a pretty long period in my career. It's almost half if you're running a full-fledged career, right? So I said, how
Right.
long will you fight this, and when will it end? Uh, so this changed my whole perspective, and I started standing up for values. And I think a lot changed when I came into Adobe, because I saw leaders here living those values. And I said, this is a company, what I am trying to do, there are people living here, living those values here. I have, that kind of gave me more power to fight this battle. And I started getting better in terms of also identifying what should I be doing differently that people were finding fault, right? How do I change myself? So I, if you ask my friends, they will say you've reinvented yourself. uh, and I think that kind of found me in a better space, and I won every battle after that long period. And I think last 7 8 years, people only see the good side or the success side of me, and many come and tell me, oh, you've been lucky, you've grown, you drive this, you own that, and everything. And everything that I own and I do actually has a story behind, because I've tried to prove something to someone saying, you did this to me, but I've come to the level that you are in today. So it
Right.
was a soft way of satisfying my own ego and battle. But there is a lot behind this, and I think I feel very proud of the value system that stayed with me to the day.
And do you give credit to the way maybe you've been brought up? Because I'm just trying to think from your perspective. You're rock bottom. You're looking at adversity. Everything's probably going wrong, but you still intact on values. That can probably only happen if you've been, in my perspective, if you've been brought up with very strong fundamentals. Was that the case for you?
It is 100% that is the case, because that was something my father had kind of put into us, saying, do not compromise on values, not worth it. It has short term benefits. So he was a stenographer. I mean, the stenographer in
Wow.
those days is somebody who takes notes from and then types a letter, right? He lived his life being a stenographer, but he had very high values, and people I know when he retired respected him more than the general managers in the company because of his ethics. They said, no, he wouldn't compromise, he won't take gifts, he won't do that. So for me, that felt like I want to be that when I retire, where people talk about you saying you didn't compromise. Probably those stories and experiences built those values in me. It's very difficult to separate that from me. I am, it's very much a part of me, and I would say the other second part has been, they always say you're an average of the four friends around you. I think that is
Absolutely.
also the second layer of things that happened to me. I had very very good friends who stood by me, not just to support what was happening, but I knew I could go to them. I wouldn't go and talk to them about it much, but I think they were doing something better in their lives. So that, you learn when you talk to them or you hear them. You don't tell your story, but you still hear it. It subconsciously allowed me to improve myself also, saying, how do I elevate myself? And identifying who's smarter than you is very important. uh, then it helps you elevate your thinking process and problem solving and everything. Those came from these few friends that I've had around me. And to the day, even today, we meet every month for breakfast. We've been friends for a couple of them. I've known them for 50 years now. We met in kindergarten, and a couple
Wow.
of them I met in
That
college. This is
long.
35 years. Yes.
Wow. Wow, no, I think that's spot on. You are defined by the people you work with. And when you told me about how you made that transition and then you saw for cultural shock in a good way when you joined, Adobe, very similar, Raghu, to what I have seen, and especially people are doing what they're preaching, which I think sets the tone for a lot of things, right? They're not just giving you a blank piece of paper and telling you to figure it out on your own self. And then the other part that I see is, like you said, who you sit with every day. What are your conversations like? that goes a long way in impacting the kind of stuff you do it, because at the end it's always quality. And I'm so glad about to know your experience. What this brings me to is something which you, and I'd say I'll have the privilege of knowing when I connected with you earlier, which is your love for scaling challenges also at a personal level. When you probably did that entire Manali Leh route, and I remember you telling me when you were staring at that altitude, and that comes with so many things, altitude sickness, rough terrains, weather unpredictable, all of those things. And then you not only scaled it once, you went back, did it 3 times, 4 times, and then now you're inspiring your next set of leaders. When you're in that spot, Raghu, and because now that's happening at a personal level, what were some of the lessons you learned from that journey, and how do you replicate that here? Because this is again my theory that somebody who is, let's say, personality wise something, will also overlap to the way he is or he or she is professionally, right? Like if you're punctual, disciplined in your daily life, if you're waking up early, you're also on punctual on time. Like you're also punctual on meetings. You're also attending everything intact. How was it for you?
Yeah, I'll probably give you a backstory to how I started off all these crazy stuff I do. And punctuality, yes, I am an OCD kind of person. I'm very punctual with, I mean, with time. I'm very particular. Any of my meetings, no matter how many I have in my calendar, I will always be there on time. You would, you can go and check with anyone. There is not an email I've never answered in my life. There's not a message I've not responded to. There's not a phone call I've not replied to. Everybody knows that about me. So there are qualities you build, they will not follow up. And I don't like people following up with me because I deliver it on time. I might be 95% accurate, but it'll always come on time. I will walk into a meeting a minute before it starts, and I will start the meeting at that minute. I will not wait and say, let's hold on for 3 minutes, people to come. I say, it doesn't matter. I respect the people who come on time, and I'll start. My entire team knows that. If I am going to be there in a meeting, everybody will be there, and meeting would have started. So I don't want to sit wasting others' time. I don't want to waste mine, and I'm very particular about respecting whoever it is. It doesn't. I don't respect just because it's somebody senior. If an office boy sets up a call with me, I will be there on time. It's the same rule for everyone. On the adventure part of it, again, it comes with a story. I was born as an obese kid, and I had this challenge with running or playing because of my size. And while I wanted to be an athlete and everything, it didn't naturally happen to me. It was very difficult while I played sports. I think I was constantly of this feeling that I don't look the way, I don't like my face, I don't like the way I look throughout my life. Even today, I don't look into the mirror. It's something that I'm not comfortable with. But I think a lot of this behind me started saying I have to do something that beats, that makes me feel I'm better than the normal people, right? Everybody else, I had difficulty buying clothes because of my size, and we could not afford too many, so there was always a difficulty. So these adventure things came in to do something that other people don't do commonly. And I think today it has set a benchmark or a standard for myself, which is very different than anybody would imagine. I mean, I am not somebody who inspires anything physical when you look at me. I mean, as a very ordinary structure. I've tried for many years. I'm unable to bring it to that because of my genetics. But the activities I go and deliver, it blows people's mind off. So cycling was one. 2015, I mean, I started cycling when my son was born. My wife was at her mom's place. I didn't know what to do, and my company was shutting down. Another company I was working for was also going for an M&A, and we all knew the day will come, and I had put on a lot of weight. I just bought a cycle, I read an article, and I started cycling around. It just caught up. It was fun, but slowly there's a friend who came and said, let's go to Khardungla. And I said, you must be crazy. And my wife actually was the inspiration behind this, said, sign up, you will practice. It's like Olympics, right? It comes every 4 years. You
Yeah.
cannot decide to play on something just the day of it, because none of us know what the ultimate fitness means unless you're there. So I signed up. I had a very good team that was kind of guiding us through. Went. we fought through this whole thing. Every day you talk to yourself, riding 7 hours, 8 hours, and every day you meet people around you. You get inspired, but you can't talk to each other because of the lower oxygen, 50-55% low oxygen. So you get tired if you talk to each other. So you talk to yourself. So after the first 20 minutes every day, you're telling yourself, don't give up for the next 7 hours or 8 hours that you're riding, because everything starts happening, right? Then I realized it's the mind that's playing this game, and you have to get tougher. And that journey of 10 days for me, achieving this, every we had to do 6 or 7 passes, high passes. Every day you do a pass, you feel you can. Then I would narrate myself, how do I go and tell the story of how I achieved it? Then I'll say, okay, let's do the next one. So slowly you encourage yourself without telling others. It came to a stage, I remember on the last day when we were doing Khardungla, it was snowing when we were going to the top, -1, something like that. And there were a bunch of bikers standing and taking photographs under that board. And I was the second or third guy who was finishing. And as I saw the board, I started crying. I mean, it's natural for anyone
Yeah.
to experience this. And it's just that you're the only one who knows what you've gone through to come here, right? This 10 days and 5 months of preparation, hardship, pain, injuries, and everything. I went there, I just stood there, cried. Everybody moved away from there. And the bikers actually said, it's his moment, let him enjoy. We will do your photographs. And it
Wow.
just adds to the emotion, right? You just feel that, okay, you've done something better than what the others have done. So they're giving you this moment. That was a time I told myself, I will make sure more people come and experience and live through this. Uh, the very following year, I became a formal guide. I got trained. I became a guide. I led another team of 10, 3 international riders and 7 Indian riders. My job was to make sure the last person doesn't give up. And I've done this for now year after year. I've been doing it there. And I'm also learning every time you meet people. And somehow what I thought will be a one-time effort has become a regular feature now. And last year I got into mountaineering. uh, I have a bunch of friends who said, let's go learn under the Indian Army. They created a special cohort for senior people. They don't train anyone above 35. uh, we were pulled in, and I completed my first basic mountaineering course under the Indian Army. I'm preparing
Wow.
now to go in April. I was the oldest also to get certified in that cohort. Now I'm preparing for the one for advanced in April. 17,000 feet, 25 kgs you carry every day and walk 250 kilometers. So it makes me feel more and more energetic, and I want to live uh, doing my job so that I can live doing these experiences so that I can encourage people, because I feel like I'm a 25-year-old today with the amount of
Absolutely.
energy and enthusiasm that I carry. My average, I bring the average age down in my team, I think, from my
Okay, so that last part, Raghu, that you just told us about, which was about like taking a challenge at a personal level, overcoming it, and then not just doing it once, but 3, 4 times, and now, as you told us earlier, your son's already doing it, and I read his blog, which was wonderful, by the way. And the maturity at that age is something I wish I had when I was 15. But two things why I think that answer was so good and that story resonated. I think first one is how you turned a no into a yes. um, I remember I told you about the first time I did a presentation, and then the 10 excuses, 100 excuses. Later, I was out of excuse and I had to face it. But then I ultimately gave it, and then I figured out, hey, this is good, right? It was not as big as bad as what I had made it up in my head. I loved how you converted that opportunity, and you actually found a silver lining, because every cloud would have something to cheer about, and that's exactly how you did it, right? You went back and you did it so many times. Second is repeatability. Now, I've been in situations, Raghu, where I had a challenge in front of me. I've taken it. I've basked so much in its glory that I've just let the world move ahead, and now they're 10 steps ahead. And I'm just right sitting right there because I've become complacent. When you did it the first time, you could have stopped, right? You could have like, hey, I've done this at that age. But you went back. You did it 3 times, 4 times as a guide. And then coming back and then just inspiring your son to do it, that for me is inspirational because now your son's done it, right? It's not like metaphorically inspirational. He's proven it. Because I remember somewhere in the blog he mentioned that the inspiration for you, like you mentioned, I think it was your wife, and then it was a father-daughter duo who had done it
Yeah.
at that age, and now you had dreamt and manifested that you would want to do it with your son. So that part is just amazing, Raghu.
No, thank you. I think that's something, I also was very conscious about it. I didn't want to be this one trick pony kind of thing where you did one and just kept talking about the past. And I think you learn this from kids. We keep telling them what we did in the past and how life was so difficult. And they keep saying,
Yeah,
don't keep ranting the same thing. And those are the kind of things I told myself I can't be doing that again. I have to keep learning from what I already have done or what I've triggered in myself. And I also learned that, of course, my wife has been very disciplined. She's been a fitness trainer along with her work and everything she's done, but we were not like that. But I think I converted, like you said, all of this came back to say you have to build a practice of doing things regularly, consistently. Then you can turn around and say you have actually done something that's going to make a difference. So now I would say it's like I won't say habit, but every time you do it, it's start from scratch, right? You have to practice, and as you get older, it gets tougher.
yeah,
But what I'm doing is I'm enjoying it today because I am fighting with myself, not with anybody else. I'm telling myself you're better at this. You have to do, and you are getting inspired by your own behavior and your own discipline. And the ones who want to get inspired will get inspired, even if, like you said, my son, we've triggered him into this whole concept. He went and did a solo trek at the age of 16. Now he's saying, oh, I don't want to go to Europe. I get me a cycle. I want to go and do a couple of things on my own. He's talking to the guy who arranges a lot of my logistics in Manali. Directly he's talking to him at the age of 16, 17. And for me that's good news, that he sees there is
yeah,
another way of enjoying life along with that. And I think that's very important. A lot of us, if you see, I've grown not reading too many books. Because for me theory, like I told you earlier on, is not very easy to kind of absorb. But I watch people a lot, and every time I've seen leaders speak in companies who don't follow what they're telling or don't
right,
practice what they're preaching, I've told myself, when I become that person, I don't want to be another Raghu sitting there and saying this about me.
yeah,
If I am saying something, I should have already practiced it. So that's why that's become like my way of my leadership style. And if I am not practicing it, you will never hear me say it. And I will not say it. If I have to get somebody to inspire, I will go do it. And I can give you a quick example. Sorry about that. The company asked me to come and encourage employees to take up our education program, the funding that we do reimbursement. And I told them I have not done it, so I can't talk. They said it's okay, senior leaders can come and do it. I said no, I won't. And I'll tell you what happened. I went and did 4 courses after that. One of them was the toughest one. It took 15 months. I had 30 projects, 16 exams. It had a pass fail. I cleared it. I did. Then I went to ISB. Then I went to IIM. This is in the last 3 years, I'm saying, right? I finished all of that. I said, now I'm ready to come and talk to employees. And I did that. In fact, the HR told me, you're crazy. I said, no, because I've done it,
yeah.
there are higher chances that somebody will do it because I practiced it at my age or at my level. Because for me, at my level, these are not necessary to grow. It is good for me. You won't believe my team today, 65% of my team are pursuing some form of education or the other using that same program. We were zero before that. And there are 39 unique courses being done by people, and many of them are doing more than one.
Wow,
This is not common amongst finance folks,
absolutely
right?
not.
It's
Yeah,
very common among solution consultants and engineers. We don't have the practice. So for me, that is a validation that I practiced something and it triggered a whole tsunami of behavior. Now, every time I talk and people ask me, I said, yes, I practiced it and I will do it that way. This is who I am. This is how I will do it. So I think it is very important for leaders to be aware that your behavior, your practice, your principles matter. because there are a lot of people at different levels who will look up to you. The last thing you want to say is, this guy is all piece of whatever he's saying. It doesn't
Yeah.
believe, doesn't practice anything. I think that's the worst thing you can do to yourself after being successful in your life.
And I couldn't agree more, because I've been in situations where I've been given a very early in my life where I've been given unrealistic milestones, and person who's giving it to me, my question to him or her would be, "Hey, do you have like a plan? Would you want to do it with me? Should we figure it out on the way?" And the answer is no. You got to figure it out. There's no precedence. Nobody has done it, right? You're just being told to do it, and which is what I really liked about what you just said, Raghu, that people around you, and you started it, you walking, you like preaching what you're doing, right? Like you took the course, you set like a benchmark and an inspiration that, hey, now I've done this, now I have something to talk about, right? This is not like I haven't, like I'm alien to it. And it's so nice to see like that number is staggering, like 65% of the entire teams now involved in some course or the other. So it's a continuous learning, it's a continuous phase of
Yep.
upskilling themselves. And again, full credit to you, Raghu, for setting that, which I wanted to talk about in the interest of time. Maybe I'll try to cover that in that last segment of mine, which is me trying to channelize my inner Karan Johar and Simi Garibal. I don't know if Simi Garibal did a rapid fire back in the day, but I'm going to take a shot at it. Um, when I devised these questions, my idea, this was before talking to you, my idea was I try to catch Raghu off guard. But having heard you, you are not a man that could be caught off guard. You are somebody who's so solid. I think you'll have an answer for all of my questions, but I'll still try my best to throw some bullets at you, right? So you'll be as quick, try be as quick as possible. Okay, one word that describes you.
Trustworthy and consistent.
Okay, that's true. I'll take that. Um,
Trustworthy. You can take one word, trustworthy. Yeah.
trustworthy. Okay, trustworthy it is. Best and worst piece of financial advice you've been given.
So worst has been, don't put money in stock market. Best has been, put money in stock market.
That's a good one. I can relate to that. Um,
But different time periods, so
yeah.
they made different meanings at the time. Yeah.
What are you in a relationship, brain or heart?
Heart.
Wow. Well, that's surprising. I almost knew. I thought this was be brain, but that's wonderful to know. Okay, good. Um, one skill that you think cannot be acquired, but it has to come within a person like from before.
One skill that has to be, I think the fundamental value system that you grow up with is something you can't keep. Um, you can refine it. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to add something new.
Okay.
And I think that is the base layer for me. Everything else can have a little bit of ups and downs. For me, values are very, very fundamental of who I am.
Okay. Your entire life so far, Raghu. If we were to make, I hope I could, if we were to make a Netflix series on it, what do you think would be the title?
I would say probably the reinvented or reinvented,
Okay.
reinvent, whatever, what's the right term. Yeah,
Okay.
I would see myself there. Yeah.
Stocks or crypto?
Stocks for now, crypto, I've not had my head around enough in that.
Okay.
Maybe my son will say crypto. Yeah.
um, one skill you now think would become very important in fact, let me rephrase it. What's that one skill you'd like to acquire in 2025?
Becoming more tech savvy, at least in the line of work that we are in. I'm a little slow when it comes to tech. I can talk and I can push people to get it done, On my own, I'm pretty slow in learning. I have a lot
Okay.
of fear around making mistakes, and I think I have to get rid of that.
Okay. Very quickly, your leadership style, Raghu.
Leading from the front, practice what you preach.
Okay. One thing you could tell to your younger self, any piece of advice, what would that be?
Not a word, but I said I should have been more driven, focused, and disciplined.
Okay. Well said. And I think just to like the last one here, which I've saved for the last intentionally because so many people now would be listening to this at the end. Um, Again, coming back, tying back to the larger aim of doing this, they might be in a situation, they might be struggling with something. What do you think they could do immediately in the next week, in the next month, that maybe helps them deal with whatever they're facing?
Yeah, one I felt is very critical is have a mentor who has nothing to do with your job or company, preferably, right? The idea is not that somebody needs to preach you what needs to be done, is to ask you questions. Why not? Why didn't you think of it this way or that way? I think that's very critical for you to bounce off. We are confused with a lot of information that's there.
Yeah.
Second is just because you don't know, it doesn't mean you don't have the answer or the solution to it. You may not have it now, but a clear mind helps you deal with things. Go back and try to problem solve it. Put yourself or the problem in the other shoes and see what are they looking for out of it. You may probably be able to find the answers better.
Well said, Raghu. Okay, that's the end of my rapid fire and also the end of the interview. I just have to say this has been so fantastic. I'm going back with tons of takeaways, and more important are people who'd be, wanting to maybe implement one or two things, Raghu, that you've told them. And that for me, I think is solving the purpose of, having someone like you do a conversation. I hope that you continue to take those high altitude roads because you can come back and you can tell me the tales and the life lessons out of those. And I can again, preach those to people. But thank you so much. This was so nice. I don't feel like I haven't spoken to you like before this. There's a very different vibe and energy to you, and I'm saying this on a virtual platform. Imagine the riot we'd do if you're in the same room. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in person as well. But Raghu, thank you for doing this, spending some good part of a Sunday evening with me, which you could otherwise spend somewhere. And I hope that this was value add and a good chat for you as well.
No, thank you so much, Mayank, for choosing me. And I was surprised. Like you said, we haven't spoken, we haven't met. But yes, the energy, I think you carry something very similar. I loved your first post, or not first, at least the one I saw on LinkedIn, and I started following you since then, which is
Yeah.
probably maybe toward April of last year that you mentioned. But I think it's been fun. I hope this helps folks, if not an inspiration, at least go and address their problems and realize that everything is not lost just because you're going through a tough time. Everything has a silver lining. It's for us to deal with it and figure out. Don't give up. All it's very easy to give up. It's tough to stay there and fight, but I can only say that in the last 8 years, I've made up for everything I lost in those 14. And I was telling just recently yesterday that if I had a linear growth in my career, I would have not grown as much as I've made up for today. This last 8 years has given me that spike I would have not had otherwise. So I said there is something to going through experiences which has made me who I am, and everything is paid back in a very different way. So hopefully everybody experiences something similar to that, and
Yeah,
something better.
and Raghu, given the lessons you've learned, the good way, the hard way, you now have like a set of people who look up to you, and I think those journey that you did is so important because not only does it help you teach them or maybe inspire them in a very different way, it also becomes a very good roadmap for being a guide or mentor to people because maybe they'd be going through that spot, like you have gone through. So it's like a playbook of sorts where somebody comes up to you and tells you that, hey, we're facing this, and you're like, hey, it's not as bad because I've gone through that. Let me show you how it's done, right? So once again, it's been a pleasure, Raghu. Thank you so much. I had a ball of a time, and I can't wait for people to view this and come back with their observations. So thank you once again.
Thanks, Mayank. Pleasure. Good luck with your series.
Thank you, Raghu. You take care and have a nice rest of the evening, and Raghu.
Thank you, you too.
Bye bye.